They laughed when he spoke, not because his words were foolish, but because they didn't expect him to dream so high. His name was Malik Carter, a boy with worn-out shoes and a mind filled with galaxies. Every night, he would sit beneath the broken streetlight in his neighborhood, sketching rockets on torn notebook pages, whispering to himself, "One day, I'll touch the stars." But in his classroom, stars didn't shine for everyone. Mrs. Whitmore, the kind of teacher who smiled at the wealthy kids and frowned at the poor, would glance at Malik's drawings with a scoff. "NASA?" she'd say loud enough for the class to hear. "Boy, be realistic. You people struggle to pass algebra, let alone build rockets." The room would echo with giggles. Some classmates would whisper, "Space janitor. That's the only way he's going up there." Malik clenched his jaw. He didn't shout. He didn't throw his dreams back in her face. He just kept drawing. That night he stayed awake on the rooftop, staring at the moon. The city below smelled of smoke and rust. But up there, it was silent. His mother walked out with 2 cups of tea, her tired hands trembling. "They mock what they fear, baby," she said softly, "and they fear what they can't understand." He nodded, folding his sketches, hiding them like secrets meant for the future. Days turned into months. Mrs. Whitmore made him erase his project proposal, a solar-powered rover, saying it was too ambitious. She handed him a broom instead of a pencil during lab hours. "Make yourself useful," she said, as if usefulness had nothing to do with brilliance. But Malik didn't argue. He swept the floors, but his mind calculated thrust ratios. He washed the beakers, but his thoughts mapped lunar trajectories. Then came the science fair. Students unveiled drones, glittering posters, robotic toys, funded by parents with endless wallets. Malik walked in with a cardboard model held together by tape, wires sticking out like exposed nerves. "Is that your spaceship?" one boy jeered. "No," Malik whispered. "It's my promise." Mrs. Whitmore rolled her eyes. "This isn't the ghetto, Malik. This is a school with standards." The judges passed him by like a ghost. No award, no applause. But one old man in the corner, a retired engineer from NASA, lingered. "Who taught you this?" he asked, picking up Malik's sketchbook. "No one," Malik replied. "I taught myself. Every equation, every design. I read old manuals from the library." The man's fingers paused over a formula scribbled on the back page, one most kids his age couldn't even pronounce. He didn't smile. Not yet. He just said, "Send me a copy of this." And then he left. Malik went home that night, not with a trophy, but with something heavier. Hope wrapped in silence. He didn't tell anyone, not even his mother. Weeks passed. Mockery continued. His teacher still called him astronaut janitor. And yet, every evening, Malik climbed that rooftop, watching the sky like it owed him a place among its stars. Until one morning, the school bell rang unusually loud. Mrs. Whitmore walked in, pale, holding a letter with trembling hands. The principal followed, eyes wide with something that almost looked like shame. "Malik Carter," she said, voice cracking, "NASA has requested you. They want to meet you." The classroom fell silent. The same kids who once mocked him now stared like they'd seen a ghost. Mrs. Whitmore's lips trembled as if each word she swallowed was a shard of glass. But Malik, he didn't smirk. He didn't say, "I told you so." He simply stood up, his hands steady, his voice quiet. "I told you I'd touch the stars." The hallway smelled different that morning, like wet paper and tension. Malik walked slowly, his fingers brushing against the walls he had once leaned on while carrying his shame. Now those same walls whispered something new. He was wanted. The letter from NASA was more than ink on paper. It was a doorway, one carved from every humiliation he had silently endured. Mrs. Whitmore didn't make eye contact. Her voice was suddenly delicate, like glass about to break. I always believed in your potential," she said, but her words stumbled over the memory of every insult she had flung at him. Malik simply nodded. "Belief isn't what you say, it's what you let people become." The class fell into a strange hush. No giggles, no jeers, just the uncomfortable sound of envy and awakening. Days later, Malik found himself standing before a panel of engineers and scientists, men and women who had touched the very edges of space. His cardboard model sat between polished prototypes like a stray dog among racehorses. One engineer tapped the taped edges with a pen. "This is unconventional," she murmured. Malik straightened his shoulders. So was every breakthrough at first. They questioned him for hours. Propulsion theories, thermal shielding, cost efficiency. He answered each one not with rehearsed lines, but with the hunger of someone who had studied in the dark while the world slept. And when the session ended, one of them smiled, the first real smile he'd seen in months. "We want you in our summer program," she said. Not as a guest. As a developer, Malik felt his throat tighten. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. But when he stepped outside, the air smelled different, like rain had washed the city just for him. Back at school, everything changed, at least on the surface. Students who once tripped him in hallways now asked for his autograph. Mrs. Whitmore started introducing him to visitors as our rising star. But Malik never forgot the silence of those nights on the rooftop, the kind that raised you when no one else would. He kept his distance, focused on his work, feeding every insult into the engine of his ambition. Until one afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore asked him to stay after class. "Malik, I owe you an apology," she said, her hands clutching the desk as if seeking forgiveness from the wood itself. "I misjudged you. I thought dreams like yours were dangerous. They give hope to kids who rarely survive the climb." Malik's eyes softened. "Dreams don't destroy people, ma'am. It's the cages we build around them that do." Her lips trembled. For a moment, she wasn't the cruel teacher, just a frightened woman who had confused control for guidance. Summer came. NASA's campus was a world away from cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights. Here, doors opened with fingerprints, and hallways hummed with machines older than his city's history. Malik wasn't the only one there. Students from polished schools, kids who spoke the language of privilege like it was their native tongue. Some welcomed him. Others glanced at his skin, his secondhand backpack, his silence, and smiled the same way his teacher once had, politely but with doubt stitched underneath. He didn't fight them with anger. He fought with diagrams, with sleepless nights bent over engines they couldn't even calibrate, with questions that cracked open problems their tutors had labeled impossible. Weeks turned into a kind of war, not of fists, but of persistence. And in that war, Malik's mind became a weapon no one saw coming. The turning point came during the Mars rover simulation. A core component malfunctioned mid-test, sending the entire design into failure. Voices rose, deadlines loomed, budgets trembled. Malik stepped forward. "I can fix it," he said, though he wasn't on the senior team. A supervisor frowned. "You? This isn't a classroom, son. This is NASA." Malik didn't flinch. "Then let me speak its language." He sketched a bypass route using salvaged circuits, something no one considered because it wasn't in the manual. The system rebooted. The rover's wheels spun again. For the first time, the room turned silent. For him, not against him. When the program ended, NASA offered him a scholarship and a mentorship track, the kind reserved for prodigies with unshakable grit. News spread. The same local channel that once ignored his science fair now featured him as the boy who reached for the stars. Reporters knocked on his mother's door. Old classmates slid into his inbox with fake nostalgia. "Bro, I always knew you'd make it." And Mrs. Whitmore, she sent him a letter, not a recommendation, a confession. "I see now," she wrote, "that greatness wears no uniform, no shade, no address. It only asks to be believed in." Malik didn't reply, not because he held a grudge, but because forgiveness to him wasn't about writing back. It was about rising so high that the echoes of their doubt could no longer reach you. Years later, standing in a clean white suit beside the very rocket he once sketched under a broken streetlight, Malik addressed a crowd of students. Some of them were wide-eyed dreamers like him. Some were skeptics like his teacher once was. He spoke not of revenge, but of gravity, the kind that tries to pull you down, made of prejudice, fear, and ignorance. Let them doubt you, he said, because doubt is just a storm, and storms too pass. The rocket roared behind him. His name gleamed on the panel. He had become what they said he couldn't, not in spite of them, but because their disbelief gave his dream teeth. A dream mocked is not a dream diminished. It is a seed buried deeper, and the deeper it goes, the stronger its roots tear through the earth.